Thanks for letting me in. I was screaming at you guys and you couldn't hear me.
Yeah, I just realized I saw that you were over on that side. All right. All right, Chris. 602. Just so you know, Chris, Doc Random is with us here to primarily answer questions about whatever anybody might be curious about on COVID. But then in respect, he still has his doctor clothes on. in respect to his time, and I know emails he's still doing for his physician role, we're going to let him jump off, and then Kristen Runge was going to join us to fill out the rest of the session with you. So once Bill jumps off, I'll text Kristen, and then she'll be able to jump in with us.
Sounds good. So okay. Are we videoing and all ready to go?
Yeah, it's recording is occurring. This will get put up on the Village's YouTube channel. I have Village Clerk Caitlin Steen with us tonight too. Sometimes as I'm trying to eagerly listen and help with providing feedback, I sometimes don't take the best of notes on things that I need to follow up on in order to get questions answered. So Caitlin's doing that note taking to make sure we follow up on stuff we can't answer here tonight.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, well, welcome everybody who's here and joining us this evening. And this is this is one of my favorite things to do as village president, is to speak with or hear from all of our residents on their concerns, excitement, happiness, things that they might want changed, things that they'd like to see different, all of those that we can share with our board. And if I can provide feedback, obviously I want to provide feedback, as do Todd, Bill, and Caitlin, and Kristen when she joins. So really this is about opening it up and giving all of you the floor to ask questions about any topic really that you want to. So with that, probably the way to do this is make sure everybody knows how to ask their questions, so they can do it either probably through chat and or Todd will let you in. All you need to do is raise your hand and he'll let you in, and we'll do our best with what we can do here. I'd rather be with you in person than on Zoom.
Yeah, I would note that the chat feature is off, so please ask your questions by raising your hand, and then I'll bring you in to speak with us. And I would also say that if it's okay, Chris, let's focus questions that anybody might have regarding the COVID pandemic and the actions that Village is taking. Let's focus on those first, so we can be respectful of Bill's time and get him back to his doctoring.
Sounds good.
All right, so I see Angie's hand up. Again, please have questions regarding COVID here to start. So, all right, Angie, you can go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to ask my question today and for holding this listening sessions. I know that there's a few people wanting to say a few things. So I just be really quick. I was thinking about the COVID vaccine and how now there's like a waiting list for people 65 and older. And I'm just thinking, since Dr. Random is here, is there something the board, the village can do, maybe through the senior center, to get our people who are over 65 vaccinated, including those without insurance?
So the vaccine should be basically free to U.S. citizens, is my understanding, and people in the area, everybody. It should be free. The problem with these first two vaccines, if you want to call it a problem, is that they need very cold environments because they're mRNA. The way they're constructed is that they need cold environments to stay viable. So unfortunately, that means even our clinic doesn't have a freezer cold enough for them. So they are being started at the bigger places. The smaller ones, hopefully we'll get them as we go. It's as everybody gets, kind of frustrating, because the most important people to get this, I agree, are these older people. And of course, some of them are not even mobile. So how the process hopefully will change as more groups get involved. But I will agree with I have a frustration with how it's being rolled out. because we were basically small places were held back so far.
I would add, since Angie specifically brought up the senior center, I had a one-on-one with Cindy Moseman, our senior services director, just yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And she did mention that the senior center's sort of function that they're going to play is, to the extent they can, is to share accurate information with the people who, with their patrons, with people who follow their communication sources. So they're going to be eagerly connecting with their clients. Some of their clients who maybe they think might not be as in tune with some of the information that comes out from other sources, they're going to be focusing on. So they are very poised and ready to help spread the information accurately as it becomes available.
And I will say, I apologize, Angie, the information has been extremely scattered. And literally I got 3 different emails today about what's happening. I think that the rollout has been a little chaotic, obviously. And so we are hoping that as groups like the Senior Center and such can help consolidate the information. And, but to be honest, I got 3 separate events listed in my own organization. So thanks.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, you did say it's free for US citizens.
I didn't mean it that way. It's free for you people that are available. It's going to be free. I think that some of the places that are, that's a misspeak on my part. It's free in the US. The whole thing is that some of the organizations are trying to get a inoculation fee. But the vaccine itself is a federal process. So it's free to, it's free. It's just getting it out is the problem.
Okay, thank you.
What type of organizations, Doc, would be charging an inoculation fee?
Well, I think some of the, they're charging it back to the federal government, actually. So they're trying to keep track of who they're inoculating. So I'm old enough to remember when we lined up at the school and everybody just got their shot. In this case, the systems are trying to keep credit for the number of people that they're vaccinating so that the federal government will pay them back over time for it. So they get the vaccine and then they're trying to get a credit for the number of people they vaccinate, which I can only hit my head on the wall so many times. So it drives me nuts.
Reminder for those who are attending here tonight, we're trying to initially take a few new people that came in, so that's why I'm mentioning this. We're taking some initial questions regarding the COVID pandemic, since we have village trustee and physician Bill Ranum with us here to start. He's going to then jump off, and a different trustee, Kristen Runge, is going to jump in. But there's a raised hand feature on Zoom. If you'd like to ask a question on this particular topic, raise your hand, and you don't have to wait till one person's done. You just pop your hand up and I'll see the order that they're raised and I can bring you in. I see there's a phone number up here. If you're participating by phone, *9 will raise your hand by phone. So
the new vaccines, I'm just going to go through this because I did it a couple times other places. The vaccines right now are mRNA vaccines, which means and there's always been this concern for safety, but these are probably the safest vaccines that we've had rolled out, and particularly in this short period of time. Basically, the way the vaccine works is it has your own body makes the protein, the spike protein that is on the virus itself. So you get the transcription and then your body makes the protein. And so your body then can react to it. So that's why I did speak about mRNA, but that's why, and that's enclosing that mRNA in the envelope to keep it safe from degrading is why we have to have it so cold.
Okay, Linda Ashmore, you're available to speak.
Just a question. Do you know if the Alliance Center is going to go back to doing testing as well as vaccinations, or is it just going to stay vaccinations?
I don't know for certain. I believe they'll be doing, I'm hoping they do both. Does Caitlin know? You do know?
I know. They're doing both right now. My husband went today. So
Okay,
they're
thanks.
doing testing and vaccination.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Linda.
Okay, any other questions for Dr. Rana? And COVID?
Everybody's COVIDed out. I've had enough.
All right, well, I'll say right now, Bill, thanks for joining in quick for tonight and being here for those questions that you did get and all that you're doing right now. I know how busy you are and how swamped you are and how stressed you are. So
Appreciate it.
keep your head off the wall.
Oh, wait,
And
looks like Linda might have another question on the topic. Go ahead, Linda.
Actually, I was trying to let Dr. Annan get off, but it's
Oh.
related to the village meetings and the freezing up that's going on. I'm wondering when you guys are anticipating getting back. I know it was asked at the meeting Monday night, but I've watched plan commission meetings where Brad Siemens dropped off during a vote, and Monday night Nyla was dropping off. So it's kind of a problem. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, take care.
So I'm kind of thinking that, you know, there's 200 people that went through the library daily, that maybe there's a way that you could do it at the library, or you can do it at the village center, since there's not that many people that usually attend.
I don't, I personally would have no problems having the board meetings. I think that the challenge was the videoing of it, which I think if we could solve that, Todd, that we could get that done. Whether it be in Village Hall or at the library or at the Village Center. Village Hall is probably too small, just for the people, for the social distancing standpoint of it. So if we had a bigger space, I don't see why we couldn't get that done. Todd, what are your thoughts?
I mean, my thought is that I think we should proceed cautiously. It is at least across Dane County, and talking to my colleagues in city management, the Zoom approach to municipal meetings is widely the approach being taken by local governments here. I'm not saying we have to do it because everybody else does it that way, but there's reasons for that approach, being safety of staff, safety of the elected officials, as well as the safety of the public. Now, there are a couple communities I know of that have, and Caitlin can jump in too, because she's been on some of these manager calls with other communities, but they've used a quasi approach where they have both the ability of people to be on Zoom like this, but also the ability to be public. So that's the other challenge, is there's going to be members of the public who desire to participate in our meetings, but don't feel safe doing so in a public place. So that's what Chris was referring to. We have to accommodate both, and that's gonna take some. It's going to take some planning and some strategies on the technological end for us to make that work really well, because we don't want to come into that and essentially be almost performing worse as a governing body than we have been now on Zoom. I know there's been a couple of hiccups. My experience has been that this has generally worked well. The board members that I know Nyla had a couple glitches, and we're already talking to her about options to help her be certainly really solid on her signal. But I've generally heard positive feedback from the board. But Kristen and Chris, do you agree? Or?
Yeah, I'm a cancer survivor with asthma and high blood pressure, so I will not be attending any board meetings in person until I get a vaccination. I would love to, but yeah, it's just too much of a risk for me, even if people are taking precautions. So,
and that's one of the interesting tricks is I've got a 74-year-old mother-in-law. Oh my gosh, I gave away her age. But my mother-in-law lives here with us. So we've been really working to live in a bubble. Caitlin has a young one, under 1 at home still. So there's kind of this, it's still uneasy for a lot of us trying to make this happen and attend, as well as for the public. But go ahead, Linda. I think you had a follow-up point.
Well, I think you were kind of touching on the issues that the school board's been doing this for quite a while, but they have it like one person comes in at a time or something, from what I understand. But yeah, I understand. I mean, I personally wouldn't really want to be at the board meeting necessarily, but it's just very frustrating as you're watching and seeing the conversation cuts out. And so, and some of the votes, I don't really know, you know, when the person drops, it's like, I don't know what they voted. So if there's a technology solution, that would be awesome.
And I would just add to the conversation that it's something that we're in regular conversation about, and we check in as staff about what we're doing and with on the behind the scenes end. So it's not, it's something we would love to get back to in-person meetings, but we, like Todd was saying, we just want to be really cautious and be safe about it because of the open meetings aspect of our meetings. We have to be really careful about technology, making sure it's accessible to everyone. So it is something that we regularly check in as staff and talk about. Are we still doing good with this? What can we do to improve? And as issues come up, we work with those board members or commission members to find a solution for their connection issues.
But Linda,
Okay.
your points are well taken. Well taken that those missed vote, I mean, that's important information for everybody to be aware of. And we're not going to just call it a fluke when we see it. We're going to work to make improvements.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks
I
for the
know-
comments, Linda. And I'm just going to point out that I would love to be back in person and having the meetings. I don't like Zoom. I think it's a little clumsy, and I don't think everybody gets a real feel for what's going on or what other people may be thinking. It's very easy to watch body language when you're in person. It's not easy to see that when you're on a Zoom call because you've got different people in different areas of the screen. So it is much better to be in person with this. I think it produces better conversations as well. But Zoom has been a good thing, and I think that's going to be a positive going out into the future from a technology standpoint for those who can't attend the board meetings, that we have them and they can still participate.
I agree. I would say, Chris, that when we get back to maybe normal meeting, I desire to see us find a technological way to incorporate video connection like this to what we all remember to be a regular board meeting. So you can expect that. How's it going to work? I don't know yet. It's on the list of to-do projects for our staff. But go ahead. Any subject, right, Chris, is open for discussion. So
Absolutely.
raise your hand. And again, if you're participating by phone, *9 will raise your hand.
I came
Okay,
in late.
so
How many people do we have?
I see 17.
Cool.
So I see Paul Wagner. I will be bringing in Paul. Okay, Paul, you're in.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep, go ahead, Paul.
All right. I'm Paul Wagner. My wife Cheryl is here listening in with me. We're at 919 Lexington Way. We are in a location where we are subject to the quarry blasting that happens at both the Tierney Quarry and the Heritage Hills blasting that is currently going on. My question is, when the Heritage Hills master plan was approved by the village, or the development plan, was it understood by the village that the quarrying operation that is going on that site and the blasting as part of it, was it understood by the village that that would be happening as part of that development process?
I'm trying to think back to those specifics. This may be one, Paul, that I'll have to dig up information for you to tell you for certain. I don't recall whether that was a element of like a presentation at Plan Commission or not. So I can find out for you.
So I guess the bottom line for me is, if, depending upon whether the answer is yes or no, if it doesn't really matter. The point being that, should that have been allowed? I mean, considering the number of homes and residents who are being affected by that blasting that's going on, and certainly I think at the moment we're feeling that with the Heritage Hills in particular, there's more blasting going on than we had ever anticipated. And I'm assuming what they're doing right now is preparing for further expansion of streets and utilities next summer. Is that correct?
Well, I can speak just a little bit to conversation I had with Chris Ellers, who is he's the lead person of Viridian that's been working with us on this project from the start. And when the blasting started hear complaints from citizens, and rightly so. I'm not diminishing the fact that you guys are feeling the impacts. And I asked them, okay, what's your plan? What can we communicate to the community in general about your approach here? His indication to me was that they're attempting to accomplish the majority, if not full extent, of their blasting for the entirety of the Heritage Hills expansion, which might be 7, 8, whatever years of a process, but they're wanting to accomplish it in a condensed time period so as not to prolong the impact for the community. And I wonder, Chris, it's one thing I would offer to do if you'd like, would be to touch base with Chris Ellers and specifically on their blasting plans to present an update directly to the village board. Come to the village board, and because I know board members are getting lots of questions, and a lot of the citizens are here who have those questions, and allow Ellers to explain their blasting plan and some of the long range expectations that we could expect.
Yeah, so I absolutely, Todd. But I would also say that I don't recall, and that's why I paused when you asked the question, Paul, any straight up discussion right off the bat about blasting that was going to be taking place in that as part of that project. Now, I could be absolutely wrong, but I do not remember at either the Plan Commission nor at the village board level that was a topic that was brought up within this. The plans were shown, what was going to be happening for the development, what type of homes were going to be in there, what the road layouts, all of those things were in there. I don't recall having any conversation. And Kristen, you were in there with me.
No. Yeah, and I remember thinking, because when we lived in Neenah, we lived in a new subdivision, and they're not far from the edge of the Niagara Escarpment, so you have to blast for everything. If you want to put in a garden, you have to blast pretty much. So I remember thinking, I wonder if there's going to be blasting, but not even thinking to ask that question at the time. So I apologize for not catching that, because that was my default assumption is my previous experience. I would put it on my list of things that I would ask the next time around, though, because it's really, when you live in a house, and I lived in a house that was on a block that was blasted all the time, it's disturbing.
So I guess part of the question or concern for me is, would that, had the board known about it, is this really allowable under the current ordinances in the village? Was there any controls that the village could have exercised on this?
Todd, I would refer it probably to Brian or one of you to know if we would have any ability to exercise. I'm assuming that we could with each subdivision. I'm thinking around the community that there's been blasting that's happened in other areas as well. I know over in, I think it's Kilkenny, over there, that there was some blasting where the Parade of Homes houses are currently, the most recent ones, that they took part of that hill away. And I know that there was some issues with that as well. And I think it's important to recognize that there are materials that are going to be in the way at times. And I don't know that, we should probably have that as part of each plan as they're coming up with that in the development, to know how they would handle it if they don't know it's there. There's times where they go and look to build and they find things under there that they didn't expect. How are they going to get that out? What's the means for them getting it out? Do they have to blast? Is there a way to get away to do it without blasting? Those are things I think that we probably should be discussing. So I'm appreciative of the points with this for that Viridian project.
Well, let me suggest that the topics you brought up, Paul, are something that we will address at an upcoming village board meeting, specifically listed on the agenda. which would provide the public an opportunity to provide comments as well. And I'll have the village engineer prepped on your questions, your specific questions, but also ask Chris Ellers from Veridian to come present on what we as a community should expect going forward with their blasting operation.
Can I ask, Paul, are they blasting within like set hours, or are you guys notification that they're going to be blasting on a certain day, or?
Well, there are notifications being posted on Wanakee Can We Talk, but they're not easy to find. You have to kind of scroll down through a lot of discussions before you actually find that notice. And it's not something that one is I mean, if you aren't looking at it every single day, you might not even know that they're planning to do any blasting.
Well, I know that Facebook page is grabbing the posts off of the village page. And so my advice would be to make sure you like and follow either or both the village's Facebook page or the village's, we also post them on, what is that? Nextdoor are the two places that seem to get a lot of traction. So consider following those. And I do also know that by request, if anybody wants to be on the email list, when Veridian sends out those announcements, you can be added to that list.
Okay.
So, and I think my email just got sent out to all of you in the chat here. So for anybody who perhaps isn't on the email list or would like to be, send me an email. And also, Paul, with your specific question that you've asked, if you'd like someone from staff to get back to you with direct answers, send me an email with your contact information and we will follow up with you directly.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question to Paul's. This is Cheryl Wagner. Does our village have any ordinances related to quarrying or blasting within the village?
Because the village engineer was asked some of these questions yesterday, and I was on a meeting with him. What I recall, and I'm going to just speak on recollection here, I think when this is at the board meeting, you'll get some more definitive answers. But the oversight and regulation of blasting is managed by the state of Wisconsin. I do think that there's a local permit required. Kevin mentioned that Veridian had the proper permit to do the blasting, but the regulation of that is a state function.
It's my understanding, however, villages and communities can have other ordinances as long as they're not in conflict with the state.
Yeah, my understanding on ordinance creation in general is that a community can make rules by ordinance more restrictive than other law unless specifically prohibited to do so. And I don't know enough about this particular subject to tell you whether there is any form of prohibition. But that's also a good question we can look into.
I do think it's something that Wanakee should start considering.
Thank you.
I think that would also be worthy conversation as a policy matter for the village board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Todd, next.
Yeah, I have Bob Raisins here. I'm going to bring him in. Hi, Bob. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Welcome.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
So I have to say, first of all, the village has been pretty responsive to residents' concerns or complaints about the blasting that was or has been happening there at the Heritage Hills construction, and DJ Dolphin from the blasting company has followed up with everybody. And I have to admit, pretty well. Spent a considerable amount of time with everybody I know, over the phone, upwards of 45 minutes, explaining what they're doing, some of the problems they've encountered, some of the challenges they've encountered with this, as the state put it, a very unusual piece of rock that they're trying to, cut through in order to put their subdivision in. But I guess, I appreciate that and that's good, but I guess I'm a little surprised that, Todd and Chris there aren't aware of any kind of, I don't know what the words are, agreements, permitting, ordinances, so on and so forth to this kind of blasting. Living where I have lived, which is a couple of thousand feet from that particular blasting site and about 1,600 feet from the quarry that's been there on Schumacher for years, these blasts are very significant that are coming out of Heritage. And DJ says, well, we made a couple of mistakes. They were shot the wrong way, further north and south than we thought. We should have gone more east or west. And he's got all these great, rational perspectives on what happened. But these are not little impacts, okay? And what that's actually doing is it's starting to fuel the fire for what the future blasting is going to be when we go into decades of an extension of the Quincy Ridge quarry that's going into, that Don Tierney's putting up. So if this is what our future is, Waunakee needs to kind of step up here and try to come up with some answers, because there's a lot of citizens. And if you look at, the Waunakee Can We Talk Facebook, there's a reasonable amount of commentary about every blasting that's happening, upwards of 50 comments or so every week, so on and so forth, because there's a lot of new people that have never felt this before. So, second point is, just so you all are aware, again, I'm surprised you're not, or at least didn't mention it, that WannaBlog does send out notifications on blasting, usually the day before the blasting occurs. So today, for example, if I would have, and I don't know if I did, I'm not saying I did, but there would have been an announcement that 9 o'clock to noon tomorrow, Heritage Hills will be blasting. Okay, so we do get notification if you're part of WannaBlog. I guess I would like to ask and request that the village boards start to get in tune a little bit more so with what's going on with the quarry. What's going on with the blasting at Heritage Hill, because it's starting to get a little bit more awareness. It's starting to get a little bit more touchiness of people asking a lot of questions. So I think we might be into a little challenge if this continues for the 6 or 8 years that Heritage Hills wants to do this, plus the 10, 15, 20 years and beyond that Quincy Ridge wants to do it. You've got yourself about a 30-year or 40-year problem here, in my opinion. So just throw that out there. I know I threw a lot out there. I'm amazed that you guys aren't aware of it. There's no permitting. There's no, limitations on blasting. It's happening, so on and so forth. So sorry to ramble, but here you go.
Okay, thanks, Bob. I mean, I did mention of some things that we're aware of, but I can't say that I know our code front to back. It's quite a document, but not an excuse to say that. I mean, we are going to help get this information for all of you. And like I said, I think you at an upcoming board meeting, we'll have a very good opportunity for a robust discussion. And we'll have everybody there with additional information that will allow us to answer your questions better on the fly. You're right, WannaBlog is a place to get the information, in addition to Nextdoor and the Village's Facebook page are the 3 places, and the email list that Veridian is using to notify those who choose to be notified.
Bob, thanks for taking some time to come in here and make your comments as well. Bob and I have had numerous conversations in regards to this, and we've had some get-togethers where we walked the properties and looked at everything. And the real thing is working together and finding a good solution. I haven't had a quarry near my home. That is absolutely fact. I haven't felt any of the blasts that we've had in any of the different ones that we've had across the village. That said, I mean, obviously, if I was in that area, and I do have a relative that lives very, very, very close to that, and you know, his comment to me was, you know, I went into this uninformed, and I should have been better at informing myself when I built my house, and maybe the information that I received wasn't so great, is what he stated. So that's something else that we maybe can look at, and how we can make sure that any quarries, and quarries are very difficult to get established at this point within the state. You know, we need to take a very hard look at that. The Quincy Ridge one specifically is in Westport, but we do have some, it's in our jurisdiction here. So that, you know, is something that it's gone through this process, and I know that residents have taken it in the proper channels of how it's been interpreted and done. In talking to our legal of this, you know, I'm really not supposed to say all that much in regards to it, because technically right now there is a lawsuit happening, and it involves the village to a certain extent. So, you know, going through this process, taking it to the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Zoning Board of Appeals makes a decision on that. We are not, there's no village board members that sit on the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's completely independent from the village and village board. And it was done that way for a reason. So, and now we're going through that process that the Zoning Board of Appeals ruled, and residents and others that are concerned obviously have that ability to take it to court and, you know, see if they can get that Board of Appeals ruling overturned. That's what's taking place. So the proper course of action is taking place. I don't personally like any kind of lawsuits that have to take place in regards to anything. That's just me. But in this situation, it is following the proper channel of what it should be doing. So, Kristen, any other thing?
I might, if I might,
Sure, go ahead, Bob.
just throw out a challenge here. You talked about the proper channels, the legal channels, makes all the sense in the world. And I do believe, similar to what you just stated, Chris, that I think the word we've forgotten in America today is compromise. And I truly believe somewhere there's a compromise we can come to, an agreement that we can coexist with the industry that wants to run their business, whether it's a new development, whether it's a quarry that wants to run a small operation. And this is where I guess I asked the village to step in and say, how can we work on a compromise, establish, you know, whatever types of conditional uses we can come up with to appease all parties. Not to say we're trying to get rid of one or the other. It's not a win, it's not a loss, it's a compromise. And I think that's available to us. I think it's out there. I think it takes a little bit of effort, and maybe we have to break the norms of following the traditional channels of the legal part of what America tells us we have to do, and kind of figure out a way to get through this so that it's a win-win for everybody. And that's what we need. Westport can't do it because they're talking it's in Waunakie's hands. The county can't do it because they're talking it's in Westport's hands. And as a resident, we're caught in the middle. We don't have a whole lot to work with here. So we're asking for the support from the leadership where we pay our taxes to step up and support our concerns from the village as if they are their own. Whether it's education to the residents that a quarry is not such a bad thing, or what it's education to what it's going to mean, what it could mean to property values, what it could mean to structural damage to your homes, whatever the case may be. There is a method, and I'm not sure we're all exploring what those could be.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, and Bob, just so everybody knows it's on the call and or in attendance tonight, Bob and I have had several conversations. We've met together several times, and I couldn't agree with him more. It's been a matter of how do we come to an agreement with all parties? And as the word compromise is important here. And, I'm sure that the developers, they have their mindset for what they want to do. There's no doubt about that. And if they're within their legal rights to do it, they don't have to do anything. Just like we don't have to do anything. We can have a choice whether or not we're going to work together or not. And, hopefully that's a little turn in our society right now that we can turn that corner of let's compromise and make this a better world for everyone, not just one side or the other. So
one final comment, and I'll shut up.
that's all. It's all good, Bob. I just want to make sure other people have an opportunity. That's all.
Yeah, fair enough. I just to the point that you just had made there about, they have their needs, that is the developers and the business and industries, but I also throw back to, doesn't the village have a say to whether or not they'll accept a development that come into a community that that lives within the standards and what the impacts would be to that environment? So I would think meaning the village, has a say in, you're welcome if you do it this way. And if you choose to do it your way, you're not welcome here. So and I don't know how it works, but to me, it sounds like there's opportunity for that.
Perfect. Thank you, Bob. Kristen, did you have any comments or you want to continue?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm looking forward to Veridian coming to talk to the village. They've been good partners so far. I'm curious. I forget who had mentioned it. If it was Paul earlier or if Todd mentioned it, I'm forgetting who. That it sounded like they're doing the blasting all up front. It would be interesting to see what they say. So I'm not going to jump to any conclusions before then. I've certainly been kind of keeping an eye on what people have been saying about it. The Quincy Ridge one, is going to be perhaps a longer time period than a subdivision that's going in. So it'll be interesting to see what those folks are going to come to us with.
Thanks, Bob.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I think Robert Mcpherson is next. And Robert, I'm going to give you this great opportunity that within the listening sessions, to me, I always try to have somebody say something that's positive that's happening in the village, and then whatever their topic is, go ahead. So just pick whatever you want for a positive of the village. It can be as much as it was blue skies today. So we want to have something positive. Go ahead, Robert.
Positive for today, as a lot of us are excited about, we have another takeout Chinese restaurant opening at the old Wanakee Tribune building. So a lot of people are excited about that. So definitely a positive.
Good deal. All right. Thank you for doing that. All right. What was your comment or question?
Well, now I'm just going to sound like I'm being negative. So my question is, and it's related to the quarry question, and it's more of just curious. And I don't have a copy of the comprehensive plan in front of me, so I'm kind of talking from memory here. But if we, in the comprehensive plan, slated an area of land that we don't want certain activities taking place there, would that allow the village, since the comprehensive plan has to be filed with the state, if I remember correctly, would that give the village any sort of out to prevent certain activities from taking place in the future on land? Obviously, I'm not talking about Quincy Ridge because that's already something that's happened, but just for future areas for potential mining operations that we wouldn't necessarily want near residential neighborhoods.
Yeah, I'm sure that's something we can look at. That would be something I would go to Jason Valerius or a village attorney to see if that's something that could be written into the comprehensive plan. Something we can consider to do that. I don't see why that we couldn't, unless we're violating a state law by doing that. There could be some things that would potentially prevent us from doing that, but I think that's something that could be done.
Okay.
It's definitely a question that we can queue up, Robert, as we approach a discussion with the board on the topic. Caitlin.
Got her hand up. Go ahead, Caitlin.
Yeah, so just a little bit of context. When I worked in the village of Cross Plains, we had to redo our comprehensive plan, and we had to designate mineral extraction areas in our comprehensive plan. So I do know that they're identified in the comprehensive plan. what kind of restrictions we can put on them through that document, I'm not sure. So definitely something we'll look into, but I just wanted to add that little bit of context that the comprehensive plan can designate the areas of mineral extraction and blasting, because obviously in cross plains with the bluffs and stuff like that, they were really protective about them and didn't want that kind of stuff happening. So definitely something we'll look into, Robert, though.
Perfect. Thank you, Robert.
Yep.
Next, we have David Betcher. I welcome Dave in. Welcome, Dave. Dave is our school board president, and go ahead with your question.
And I'm not speaking today as any part of the school board. I'm speaking because I live on Lexington Way, which is right next to the quarry and right next to the new development. I was a little surprised about the blasting, that we had not heard about it until suddenly it was going to start happening, because 15 years ago, when they did Northridge, they had zoned it for residential. The village had to turn around and zone it back so that they could blast in order to do those houses. And a lot of us were obviously upset because the blasting was happening within 100 feet of my backyard. And so we tried to talk the village out of rezoning it back, saying, what do you need to blast for? And the developer says, well, I have to blast in order to have the basements deep enough so that we can have full basements instead of only half basements. And it's like, well, we didn't blast when we built our houses, and I built my house new 21 years ago, and we didn't have to blast, and yet we're sitting on the same hill. Well, then you started to slowly figure out it was about walkout basements and about being able to have, a higher value on the property. So when this development happened and all of a sudden it's zoned residential and then they start blasting, I start going, well, how did that happen? What changed in the village in the last 15 years that you could blast in a residential neighborhood within a couple hundred feet of a house? I haven't figured that out yet. So maybe somebody can figure out why we had to rezone Northridge back to allow it, but this one we don't have to, and they can just start blasting without having to go through any process. And I got to say, I've been living next to the quarry here for years, and their blasts have never been this large. And I'm starting to see cracks in my drywall and settling on the north side of my house, in the drywall inside the house.
Can I ask a quick question? Just, are you referring to the Quincy Ridge, or are you referring to the
I'm referring to the residential development.
The residential. Okay, go ahead.
The Quincy Ridge, we haven't seen much of that yet. Obviously, that's coming. But on the residential development, we're seeing the blasting now, and we're starting to see some physical effects of it. When they did Northridge, we had a direct communication with the developer. He actually came in and took photos inside the houses nearby so that if there was any problem, they could address it and pay for it and deal with it. Unfortunately, what happened was I didn't have radon in my house until 3 years after all the blasting. Suddenly, all the tests start going positive, and I had to put in a radon system. Now I'm starting to see cracks in my drywall. Who in the developer do we talk to if we feel that they have caused an effect on our house?
I think that's a great thing for us to have a conversation with them about as a village, on your behalf, through our village staff, and then get answers for you on that. So if you have those things happening, I think that it's absolutely something we can address with them.
And I think that's, if you find out something, I was surprised the last developer, like I said, they literally came in and photographed everybody's houses and basements to get ready in case something happened.
Sure.
And I think that process should be done again. And hopefully you can find something that we can do rather than everybody having to file a lawsuit.
So Todd, is that something that we can do from I wish Brian was in the conversation tonight. So to say that for the mining operations, can we put in there that before they start any of it, as the village, I'm saying, can we put anything in that would state that they're required to go around and take video evidence in a certain area to make sure that if their blasts are indeed doing any damage, that they're going to be on the hook? It would show if there was beforehand that way, and of course, if it's after, after a certain amount of time, we'd be able to monitor that. Is that something we can do, or are we going outside of our bounds to do that? Part of the challenge, because it's in extraterritorial where Quincy Ridge is for sure, I don't know how we would be able to do that since it sits in Westport right now. Maybe we could, maybe we couldn't. I don't know. Can we look into that and go down that road?
As you might guess, I don't know the answer to your question, but it will be on the list of items that we prep for discussion with the board.
Dave, thanks for your comments. I would also say what's interesting is, I am not a Facebooker. I still am sane, I think, as a result of not being a Facebooker. And I do have email, I do have a telephone, and I always want to encourage people, if there's things that are happening, the best way to get a hold of your officials is to email us or call us and ask us questions. Bob was on earlier. Bob called me, emailed me, I think, and I got right back to him, and we went and had conversations, and that is important. These listening sessions are great because I start to hear things, but sometimes they come a little bit too late, is all I'm saying. And I would prefer if people did that. And maybe I've struggled with Facebook because the conversations tend to go negative in a real hurry from what I understand. So I've stayed away from it for that reason. Other people, love it and great, but I'm just not that person. So I'm trying to communicate that the best way to get me is email or call me. And I'm happy to.
Yes, I did share your email. What's the best phone number for people to reach you at?
Best number, 608-576-7341. And I know Linda was on earlier too. I've had conversations with Linda. I think that if she popped back in, I try to get back to people as quickly as I can. Sometimes it might be a day or two, but I try to get back to people in a timely fashion. So.
David, I will also make contact with Veridian about your specific concerns. What I suspect will happen is that within a day, you'll be getting a call from them to talk about what you've experienced. So going backwards, it might not fix anything for you, but at least going forwards, you guys can have a connection.
Okay, David, any other questions or comments?
Oh, sorry, I thought you'd already jumped to the next person.
No,
no, Pierce.
So, okay. I never want to push somebody past too fast. I want to give everybody opportunity. So perfect. Thank you, Dave. All right, Bob Raisins, you have your hand up again. You raised your hand.
There we go, I unmuted. So my question is, it sounds a little bit like you're a little surprised about the concerns that you're hearing, and I get that. But the question is, how many people and I don't have the answer, the normal situation typically just accept what's happening and don't necessarily complain about it or any given situation because they're intimidated by it, they don't know how to, and they don't want to. I suspect that you might hear from 5, maybe 10% of the concerns that are actually out there. My guess, curious to know if you guys have a perspective on it. Thanks.
So I want to make sure I understand the question. So you're saying, I just want to make sure I'm going to respond right because I'm not positive what you're saying. I think you're asking.
I'm saying basically that not everybody is very vocal, okay?
Okay, I got it.
Necessarily complain. So you're saying, here's my phone number, here's how to reach us. But a lot of people are too intimidated to talk to somebody so glowing and authoritative as yourself in such a position as the head of the village of Wanakee.
I think he's, Bob, are you making fun of Chris? So.
I'm trying to think of the authoritative part of me. Maybe Bob, you can be my witness. Am I hard? Am I a very authoritative and intimidating individual? I don't think I am. I hope people feel that I'm open to anything. But yeah, I mean, that's something that I hear your point that sometimes maybe the title or whatever that comes with it, people could have some, what's the word I want to use? I don't like the word fear, but maybe that's the right word. Fear of a repercussion or something. If they came at me with something and I didn't agree with them. Generally, if I don't agree, I'll say why I don't agree. But And then maybe we can work out a compromise. That's really what the best route to take is, as we talked about earlier. Kristen, you piped in there. So what you might have.
Yeah, no, I was gonna razz you if Bob was razzing you. So, yeah, so that's a hard thing, right? If people are not comfortable sending an email or picking up the phone or going to a board meeting and saying, then we're not going to know about their concerns. We all, and far more so than before the pandemic, try to get out there and talk to people. But again, if I don't encounter somebody in person or see them in a grocery store or at church or something, I'm not going to have the opportunity, and none of us are going to have the opportunity to talk to them. And even in those situations, you know, standing over the potato section at Pig is not necessarily a great time to say, so, you know, I have, you know, what do you think of what's going on? Somebody might not be in that moment able to talk about, they might be running to dinner or something or grabbing kids. So to a certain extent, yeah, we do kind of rely on people reaching out to us as board members to let us know. I pay attention to what's happening on social media because I am a Facebook user, but you know, I also study that stuff as part of my job, and I recognize that there is a segment of the population, and it's not a majority of the population, that voices concerns in what is you know, a more or less public forum that's in some ways more intimidating for many people than calling. So we can keep track of things that way. And a lot of us do. And I've been following the conversations about blasting at the Quincy Ridge, but I haven't heard much about blasting at Heritage Hills. And again, that might not be from lack of paying attention, but because what my Facebook feed says at any particular moment depends on the time of day I'm logging in, what's been most recent, what Facebook's algorithm directs to me in terms of conversations. I get every Quick Trip conversation because I pay attention and I like the Quick Trip comments, and other comments on the same message board I'm not going to see because it's directing us to what we've reacted to in the past. So it might be on there, it might be a discussion, we might not actually see much of it. So it's, you know, we're kind of aware of it. We're glad for listening sessions like this. We're glad for people that write editorials. We're glad for people to, you know, stop us at the, you know, at wherever they see us in town. But it's, I mean, it's a constant effort that we all make. I think the people on the board are pretty good about that. But yeah, I don't think we're ever going to know everybody's concerns. We're going to try to, but you know, we're going to have to a certain extent rely on people being able to speak up for themselves if something's going on. Grateful when they do.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
Linda Ashmore, you've got your hand up. Go ahead. Todd, can you unmute Linda? There she is.
Yeah, I wanted to just kind of chime in that Chris and I don't agree on things sometimes, but you always will listen. So
thank you, Linda. And I'm glad when you reach out with opinions and let me know what you're thinking.
Well, and so I would encourage people to speak up at the listening sessions, to contact people. Todd was very responsive. There's been some shoveling issues as people who are on Wanakee, can we talk or just walk your neighborhoods? And they did a media blast right away. And but I kind of wanted to bring up a couple issues as far as with the diversity and inclusion and equity issues, because you're doing a great job as far as reaching out to people and doing education. But I'm kind of looking at some actions too, like when there's a sidewalk complaint, for example, because I did my first one this last week. It takes almost a week before it actually gets moved off. And so I was looking at other communities' ordinances, and the issue is that if it's a rental property or they don't have a phone contact for them, it goes through basically mailing to the owner's address. And the ordinance says that you're supposed to have your sidewalk cleared within 24 hours. And when I complained about it, then, you know, for 3 weeks that you had issues with it. So I kind of looking at other ordinances, there's an opportunity to just place a notice on the door and take a picture. I'm thinking like Amazon, this is where, you know, your package has been delivered. This is the date and time we posted this, and ask if it's a renter to contact the landlord. But waiting that long to clear something off when especially it was a corner lot, is really not very good for ADA issues. So, and then as far as inclusion, I think there was discussion about flying the pride flag during Pride Month. And I don't know what happened to that, but I think that would be a nice statement. So just some suggestions. Thanks.
Thank you. Others? Topics
I
are
would
all.
like that. I'll go down on record as saying it. I'm an ally, so I would love a pride flag. But there's my opinion. Take it for what it is.
Others, if you have comments or questions, raise your hand, please. About different topics we can talk about. You know, one of them that we just talked about at the board, I'll throw it out there for people to get thoughts. We have a potential new trail that we're looking at putting in. We discussed it at the board, so we're looking at it with property. We have to make sure that it's fair and equitable from a swap of land. It's land that we really can't do anything with. It's landlocked and the creek is on one side, the railroad tracks are on the other. And we're trying to put a connection through that just runs consistent all the way through the village out to Governor Nelson. So there's some real subtle things that have to happen within that. Whether we do it or not, we don't know if we can do it. I mean, we have to see what the costs would be to do it because there's some wetlands and various other things, but it's a great thing for our community to have walkability, especially being able to be off the roads, going through nature, all the above. And that's been something that's been important to me. Same thing when we did our trails over by the library. That was one of the parameters of that was important to me with the library was having the trail running in front of it, in addition to then extending it down that we're getting into our downtown area and hopefully out into the future if we can't get that all the way over to Highway 113. So that's an exciting opportunity for the village. You know, when those are going to take place, I don't know. I mean, obviously there's funding that has to go on and we're trying to be cognizant of all of our tax dollars. So, and what we can or can't do. But, you know, I'm excited about that. I know Kristen commented on it the other night that, you know, she's walked over there and she thinks that's would be amazing. So I'll let you speak to it though.
Yeah, we used to live along Woodland and back up to the woods, and my kids spent an enormous amount of time in those woods when they were younger because it's a pretty spectacular area and underutilized, as I think a couple people pointed out. So to get a trail for the fact that you go out on a weekday or a weekend night when the weather is anywhere near good, and you'll see people up and down the trail to Governor Nelson, and the idea that we could, you know, traverse from one end of the town all the way to Governor Nelson Park through some of our underutilized land would be really amazing.
And so people understand how complicated this is. Robert, I'll get you right in 1 second. Just let me finish this point. The house that sits there is in Westport. The land that he owns is in Westport. Then we own the land that's just to the north of him, which is in Wanakee. He would like some of our land. We would like some of his land. And we couldn't get it to happen about 10 to 15 years ago, somewhere in there. Sue McDade had tried to work with them as well as Tom Wilson from Westport to get that connecting point. And the landowner just didn't want to do it at that time. Well, it makes sense for him now because he has some land we have some land that he would like to use for his property. And that's opening up this opportunity. So this isn't something that was, you know, just off the radar because it is in our comprehensive plan. I see Robert's going to be talking. He brought up comprehensive plan earlier. This was in our comprehensive plan to have this trail here. So I think that's an underutilized asset that we have that we're going to get an opportunity to use more of with our conservancy and everything over there. So there, I was trying to stay positive and hopefully nobody's going to take that negative, but that's a positive thing to me. Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, so good explanation. I'm not going to ask about that trail. In fact, the one question I would have asked you addressed, Chris, which is about the homeowners' land and wanting to do the land swap. So I'm not touching that. I have a not as easy topic, tax incremental financing. I was hoping, and I will keep this as simple as possible. I'm not going to get into details. I was hoping if we could hear what the thought process difference would be between the Octopi TIF and the Cohen Airsie Esri's, wow, I butchered that. Cohen Esri 1-year extension for affordable housing to the to TID number 2. So it sounds like some of the, and I'm not asking you to speak for the trustees, but it sounds like some of the trustees are really struggling. You know, octopi seem to fly through approvals much cleaner and easier than the 1-year extension has been going. And I understand it's tabled because they wanted more information. I did watch the video. I was unfortunately, I was driving home that night, so I couldn't watch it live, but I did watch it earlier today. So I know, you know, what Bill's concern was about putting, I think it was the cart before the horse, he kept saying. And I know that in general, it just seemed like there was a need for more education, but what is it about this, do you think, that makes it so much harder for them to approve versus, you know, the more traditional TIDs that they've done so far?
Yeah, I don't think that it's necessarily that it's harder. I'm not going to say that. But first, I wanted to say I'm glad you're watching our board meetings during the day when you're wide awake, because you can stay awake. Sometimes they do get a little bit long and tedious, but as far as the difference, I mean, one is obviously a creation of something new as a TID district with octopi. That's going to be for several years. Looks like right now, I can't really talk about how long for sure, because that's part of the negotiation, but we'll be coming out with that, you know, probably in our next board meeting. You're going to hear all about the octopi TIF, how that played out. But the 1 year at the extension of the other TID, I don't think that it's anything that, at least I can speak for me. Kristen, you can speak for you. For me, it was, you know, really, this is the first time we've done this. We've never done a TID that we had this extension. This is new within the law. I just want to make sure that I read through everything, look at it, see if it's going to be in the benefit of our whole community. And affordability within housing is important within our community, as it is in every community. But that's just making sure that I'm not setting a precedent, because in this particular situation where I'm contemplating in my own head about this, we're taking that TID, extending it by a year. There's a certain amount of revenue, which I think is 460,000, something like that, of dollars that would be going all towards one project. Whereas if we used it, I feel like it's going to one thing versus there's probably other things we could do with those funds too. But we're giving it to one example. So that's what I'm thinking. Are we setting a precedent because we're giving it to one? So the next time our TID comes to close, is there going to be a developer that comes in and takes the money for all that, where we'll have opportunities with those other TIDs when they close, that we could put it for multiple projects versus a singular project. So those are just things I'm thinking. It's not that it's a hard decision. It's just I'm trying to make the decision that's going to be not precedent setting with this, because I don't want this to be a situation, because we don't have that many TIFs. We really don't, that you're going to have that is this opportunity to come by. And our EDC committee, we talked about our TIDs. We want to only use the ones that are super successful, that are closing early, potentially to use towards these types of projects. Unlike our industrial park, which went to its life, we didn't really have any additional funding in that. It made it through, but it wasn't super healthy the whole time through. That's a different type of TIF and a different, you know, the committee decided that it was not good to use those TIDs because the funding just wasn't there, and those went for a long period of time. That those tax dollars, the goal is to get the tax dollars back into the different taxing jurisdictions as fast as we can, as far as I'm concerned with the TIDs. And the octopi TID is going to be closing much quicker than your traditional TIDs have in the past. So that, I don't know if that answered your question all the way, Robert, but that's kind of the thinking that I have going with me right now. Kristen, do you have anything to add to that?
I like to talk about TIDs. I think I'm the only person that does. And that's okay, because we all have our roles in this world, right? Yeah, so the question of why does it seem like the Cohen Esri decision is taking longer than the octopi decision? And I was thinking of this the other day, and I was trying to count back how many meetings was it since the octopi that was first introduced, and how many meetings back was it since the Cohen Esri project was introduced? And I couldn't remember. But it feels to me, honestly, like we've been talking about this octopi TID or TIF since the dawn of time right now, because I want to say it was like September or October I could be wrong on that, that they first brought it up to the village. So it feels to me like that one's really long. The Cohen Esri, and there's an actual answer to that. I don't know what it is. The Cohen Esri, it feels like it's taking longer because it is the first time that we would extend TIF and TID. And so the decision was to involve the CDA in helping set those guidelines. So rather than, typically with the TIDs or the TIFs, we're working through a different set of committees, and each one of those committee steps is really important because this is a big decision for a community. It shouldn't just be the board, or it shouldn't just be the plan commission, or it shouldn't just be one body. All of these bodies have to line up in their thinking, not be forced to line up, but they need to be able to weigh in it, check it against what their charge to the community is. So that all of that takes time. And so now we introduce the CDA into the process because this meets the goals, or it could meet the goal of helping to provide affordable housing. That's something that we're charging the CDA with making recommendations towards. This would be a policy, again, with the idea that any move that we take could set a precedent. So we need to be crystal clear on when we would and would not extend TIFs, which TIFs they would be under, which circumstances, for what types of projects, do we not do this for. So all of that being worked out for the first time is adding some time to it. With that in mind, all of the committees, all of the boards, the various groups are also keeping in mind that Cohen Esri has a deadline. So we're trying not to put them in a situation where our deliberations as a village runs out the clock for them. That we give them a straight answer that's consistent with what's going to come. So we're trying to balance that a little bit. So that's the time issue, but I think you had another question in there, Robert.
One piece of information for you, Kristen, looking at my contacts from Octopi, they first initiated discussion about this expansion with us in February of 2020. And their first presentation to the village board was in June of last year.
And that was the first they asked of TID. So the conversation.
Yes, for this
request
for this
came in
new
June.
expansion.
Yeah, yeah. So it has been forever. I am not imagining that. That is good, and that's part of the process, right? You got to think about it some more, and then think about it some more.
It's a little different too, Robert, in that the Octopi project had to go through the entire TID process, where you have public hearings, you have the joint review board meeting, you have the joint review board hearing things, all the voting entities have to go through. So it's a lot longer process technically than what the Cohen Esri could be, where if we decide to extend a TID, we don't have to go through any of those processes, which to me as a board member, I was hesitant just because there's no safeguards in there. We're just making a decision based on what a law that was made now that we can use it towards affordable housing. So it's important that we kind of establish that policy of how we're going to use them moving forward. So hopefully that answered your question. I hope it did.
I mean, I would put some context in there that when I say moving through easier, I was speaking more in the context of perceived resistance from the board, or should I say certain members of the board. Again, this is why I preface this with, I'm not asking you to speak on behalf of any other board members, because I think that you were at the meeting, who was speaking, with some trepidation about taking on or tying up funds in this way. And Kristen, for what it's worth, as a member of the public, I highly agreed with your statement of it's an investment. You look at it as an investment that you're going to get even more back on. As a banker, I appreciate that, because a lot of people have money right now and nowhere to invest it. And so you have to find the one that gives you the best return. So I'm fully appreciative of that. I guess what I was really trying to get at with that though, and I've kind of said my piece on it, is that it to the public, it's perceived that the Octopi has taken longer by nature just because of the way that the TID process works. But it seems that based off of the votes and based off of the actions and the words of the trustees that were involved, that it has had an easier time progressing than, just this short little period where we've been, or I should say, where the village has seen you guys contemplating the one-year extension. And just for the record, extremely familiar with the 1-year extension. I talked about it when I ran for office the very first time, and Sue Springman actually stole my thunder from me at the first public forum to talk about it. So very aware, very supportive of it. So thank you for answering my complicated question.
Yeah, there's an element of, you know, I don't think, I know I try to speak my piece when we're in board meetings about what I think of an issue. I'm hoping I'm not venturing over into persuasion with my fellow board members, because I don't think that's my role. But I try to raise parts of the issue that they might not have considered before. And sometimes I feel like I am walking the edge of that, but that's also part of the process too, is watching the board talk it out, as you know, because you've watched, you know, and participated and done this sort of thing.
More than I'm willing to admit.
So.
All right, thank you, Robert. Any others? Hands up at this point. Any other topics that are of interest to you?
I'm glad we got a Tiff and Tid question.
Yeah, that's all good. Linda, let's see. Linda A, is that Linda Ashmore again?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, Linda.
And if somebody else wants to talk, go ahead, because I don't want to like monopolize the time.
No, it was Linda A, so I just wanted to make sure on my screen. So go ahead.
One of the things that I'd like to see when you talked about the village reorganization, they had the presentation a little while back. And one of the things they were talking about was a communications person. And the public hearing notices, you guys are doing them how you're supposed to do them by law, but they're like about a 4-point font in the sports section. So I'm wondering if there'd be a way for them to, for the village to have a public hearing email list or some kind of a way to actually post the public hearing notices on the site somewhere where it's readable. And I'm looking at, I'm kind of comparing it with how the village center, if you had kids in sports back when, that you get blasted all the time about, we've got this camp coming up, or we've got sign up for Little League. And it seems like that would be something that would be fairly easy to do.
Todd and Caitlin, I'm going to put that one to you guys. And if there's a great solution for public hearings and getting people involved, I'm all for it. I've always tried to include as many people as possible. These listening sessions. I mean, it's funny. John Lovmeyer had these, and it was generally a team of 3 or 4 people that would show up, and that was usually staff. So the fact that we have 16 on here is a good thing, in my opinion. Right now, I think maybe we're up to 17 or 18. I don't even know, but I think it's a good thing. And Linda, your point is taken, and I think we've been doing. I think we've really evolved a lot with regards to our meetings and making sure that they're open for people, including when I proposed to the board to open up our public comment section. You know, that for anything that people wanted to speak to us about, that's not a really usual thing that most boards do. So I'm listening and wanting to accommodate you. I put that to Caitlin and Todd to see how we can better accomplish that. I don't know if you were insulting the sports page or not, though. Were you insulting the sports page?
No, actually, I think that they do a nice job. It was a compliment that, and my kids are you know, way out of that age, but I still actually get some that is like, oh, why am I still getting these?
All right, very good. Thank you.
Linda, I can just respond to Linda to say it's something that my team can look into to see what kind of services are out there for mass email blasting. I know that the Village Center has their own recreation program that does that. That's why it's so nice and seamless, because when you sign up for recreation events, you pretty much click what you're interested in and they have your information right away. And that's why you get those lovely blasts. It's definitely something that we would have to look into. I know that there's several services out there. It's just a matter of us finding the one that works best for us. But I know of other communities that do what you say, Linda. They do have different types of listservs that residents can sign up for, and they can get all the information they ever want blasted out to them. So it's definitely something, Linda, that we can look into.
Okay, and then I just wanted to, actually, I've been learning lots about TIDs and TIFs from years ago when the T-wall thing was coming through. And I support the TID extension. I think it's that affordable housing is something that we just don't have starter homes, and we don't have affordable senior homes. So I think it's something that I'm not a fan of TIFs, but it's an opportunity here to do something good. So I think, and you would get the investment back within 1 year versus a 20-year TIF. So I think the extension makes a lot more sense than a TIF does.
Okay, thank you. I'm with that. So for all of you who have not spoken, this is your big opportunity to advise to what you like that's happening in the village right now, or what you would like to see different in the village. That's something that's important for board members, but also other citizens to hear about, so they can get involved with it as well. You know, we talked about different things that we're looking at, like a trail or a new park that's on the potential, or a swimming pool. Nobody asked about the swimming pool, which was interesting tonight. I was thinking, oh, that might be something we're going to talk about tonight, but nobody's asked about Hy-Vee tonight. There's been all kinds of different things that you could talk about. Maybe you want to see it, maybe you don't want to see it. That's what I'd like to hear about. Paul Wagner just came back in. Welcome, Paul.
There we go.
There you go.
Since you just mentioned Hy-Vee, I'm just was on my mind as we were talking here, curiosity as to what's the status of that project, seeing as nothing's been happening here over the period of the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, so we've been as actively pursuing Hy-Vee to see where they're at as probably any resident in the community. Todd and I have, whether it be through Hy-Vee or Forward Development Group, which is the developer who sold them the land. We don't have a, what's the word I want to use here? We didn't have any agreement that said you have to be built by such and such a date. There is no TIF agreements within that. There's not going to be any TIF agreements within that. They are on their timetables. And from what they indicated to us, and I just got a letter from them and I asked them to clarify that they fully intend to build in Wanakee. Some of the things that delayed them were COVID, obviously, redesigning their buildings interiorly to accommodate COVID. If anything like this were to happen again, e-commerce and what's happened in e-commerce and how they can get groceries out to people easier via pickup and so on. So the different designs that their stores could take on, and then eliminating some parts of their stores based on the loss of revenue that they had. So those are some things that they had in mind with this. But then as COVID slowed things down, am I having background or is that somebody else? Must be somebody else.
No, it's my wife right here.
Oh, okay. I thought I was having background. I'm like, man, is that me?
Someone's trying to figure out how to get into, she's pressing the hand, nothing's happening, so.
Oh, okay. So I lost my train of thought there. So they are fully intending to build. Oh, I know what I was going to say. The costs of materials and all the different things that happened here during COVID to build have slowed their path. They're a large organization and they're putting up a lot of new stores. And so they kind of have a construction way of doing things, and that construction way has been delayed, and that meant that our project got delayed. So they fully intend to build, and you know, I heard two different things, and that's what I was trying to get clarification on. The one thing I heard was that they were going to start building next summer, that they wanted to begin in the summer, and then that maybe they didn't want to commit yet to that number. So I don't, or that date. So I don't know that yet, but that's the best I can give you at this point. Todd, did I get everything and cover everything accurately there?
Yeah, the other things that we can share that we know, they've indicated, we've heard that once they do break ground, you can expect, they might be changing that too, but they've told us an 8-month construction process. So once you see that shovel going in 8 months, now if they're changing the layout of the store, maybe that's going to change too. We'll see. The other thing we know is that up until a few months ago, essentially this project was within the real estate division of Hy-Vee, and we've been told that it has been transferred into the construction management division at the corporate level. So, you know, it's all right, we got the property, we're doing it, people, and now it's about the timing on the construction end and the planning end. So that's the other info that I've got, Chris.
Yeah, and the property is basically ready to go at this point. They've already done all the work to get it to that point. Forward Development Group has completely, you know, met their obligations to get the roads that are in over there and the infrastructure. So it's ready to go as soon as they are. So that, you know, the 8-month time frame, maybe it's going to be less because it's ready to go on those fronts, that they don't have to move any dirt or do anything anymore, really.
I think that they gave 8 months, Chris, as a time when they begin the store construction. It
Okay.
is pad ready, which makes it maybe a more efficient process.
Yeah, and you'll see, I think the stoplights that are going to be over by the school on, what's our road, Todd, right there?
Simon Crestway.
Simon Crestway, yeah. Simon Crestway, those will be completed as well when this process, during this process. So,
Actually, those are going to be put online this spring.
awesome.
Should be within just a month or two.
So I know everybody likes red lights, just as much as, or more than a green light, but no, I'm kidding. Those will be there, and that's about a safe area. And as soon as that Hy-Vee does go in there, you're going to see a lot of traffic in that area, and that's something why we wanted to address that up front. So thanks for your question, Paul. Bob Raisins, you have to start with a positive statement because this is your third time in.
This is nothing but positive.
Okay, go ahead.
100%. First of all, I guess when you don't hear a lot of negative and you haven't heard, you've heard some, not a lot, consider that a good thing, okay? And it really is. I think that's a compliment that there's not a lot of different issues that people are concerned with out there. So take that as a compliment to what you're doing. As a personal compliment from myself, I congratulate you all, and I congratulate the leadership of the village for holding this type of forum where people can chat without getting too emotional, to discuss ideas, concerns, so on and so forth. And you are actively listening for the betterment of the community. And I applaud that effort, and I wanted to say thank you for that effort, even though sometimes you don't always hear the good side, but there is good side. Consider no news good news. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Paul Wagner, your hand's up again. Go ahead. I guess I forced Bob to do it, so this is your third time, so I gotta say you gotta start with the positive.
Sorry, I'm on the phone with Elizabeth Peter and she's not getting the raise the hand to work for her. Can you just let her in?
Of course.
Yep, go ahead. Are you okay? Go ahead, Todd.
Okay, Elizabeth, you can go off mute and you're ready to go. You should be good. Oh, you're back on mute. You should be good now.
It says mute, but you can hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to speak a little more about Quincy Ridge. And I think most of what I said, and what I want to say has already been said by others, but you know, I'm concerned about the blasting that can go on for decades. It's you know, we thought that the old quarry was done, and now this new one has been granted license to go on. It could be forever, who knows? But the quarry was grandfathered in, and that's a problem for us who live over here, because it's in Westport, but it's, you know, affecting houses right here in Wanakee. Some of them are 50 to 100 feet away from the boundary of the quarry. And it seems as if nobody wants to listen to us or help us, or I don't know, we're sort of between Westport and Wanakee. And I wondered, is there any way one of you could be responsible for this quarry, since it exists? It's somewhere and nobody seems to be wanting to claim it. And so therefore we can't seem to make any progress on making things better for the residents. And I just wondered if that's something that's possible.
So thank you for your comments, Elizabeth. I would tell you that I am involved with this. I have, and Bob's been on a couple of times, and I've gone over and walked the area. I walked down to see how the distance was behind the homes. I went over to see where the quarry was at right now. The barbed wire fence that goes through the back right now to keep people away from the quarry. You know, there's going to be all kinds of concerns that are going to come from this. And I heard them all. You know, you're going to have destruction of homes, or you know, the damage to your homes, I should say, not destruction, but damage to your homes. Property values potentially could go down. You could have a safety issue for kids being so close to it in their backyards. You could have, you know, you have a beautiful view right now for a lot of people up there that's just green space and great. You know, that's going to go away. And I think as this process goes through, as you mentioned, right now the developer in this case has the they have the rights to do this. And the important thing that's going to take place moving forward, and what I've been trying to do, because what I can do versus what I can't do, or I shouldn't say can't, but what I'm not legally able to do is bring the sides together to say, here's what, you know, was important to the residents. Here's what's important to the developer and who's doing the mining, and how can we work together to have a solution that is okay for everybody. Everybody's not going to necessarily go away happy, ecstatic. Some people are probably going to go away, you know, not feeling great about it, but it's better than what it could have been. And that's where we kind of need to get to with this. Most people, when you're going through a negotiation, if one side's happy, that means it probably wasn't a great negotiation. If the other side's not happy, if you go away and both sides are happy, that's ideal. Very rarely happens. This might be a situation where both sides may not be feeling great about what they get, but at least it's acceptable. And you know, we hear all the concerns and what's happening. I do hear the concerns that are out there. My father lives at the top of Skyview, 2 houses away from it, where the blasting was before. And so I hear from him specifically. You know, I don't like to bring up family members in listening sessions because it causes me trouble. But and it's not from the family members, which is weird. But I'm listening to everything that people are saying tonight. And you know, I've been in contact with our attorneys for the village to make sure what I can say or what I can't say about this, because again, there's litigation going on, and while that litigation is going on, the village is really having to defend itself right now, you know, within this. And once those appeals are done, then we would be able to figure out what we can do. But I think it's important to bring the sides together to discuss this once it's done. This is one that's not, we can't go back on. I've used this example before. You know, I'm fortunate to have a place up on Lake Wisconsin. We bought some property there. We built our home. Well, our neighbor put a big addition onto his home, which blocked the view of the lake for us. We didn't know he was going to put that addition on at that point. He had every right to do it, and he did it. So we live with it. Did it impact our property value? Probably. I would guess it did. But I still have a good relationship with my neighbor because we work together and we get along and we help one another up there. So that's kind of where I'm coming at with this right now. That when I hear that, well, the village isn't doing anything, I'm doing what I can right now. And I have to follow the legal bounds of it too. That's part of my role and responsibility as a village trustee or village president. It doesn't make any difference which role I'm talking about at that time, because I'm one and the same, just like Kristen is. You know, there's things that we can do, and there's things that we are really kind of out of our hands. And what we can do is help to bring people together once this is completed. And Bob is my witness to that, because I've already done that and tried to start that process. And I think that we will get there when it's done. I really do. I think that there's going to be a solution that people can live with versus be mad about. I think we're going to get there.
Thank you.
No, but we're going to do our best with it. Thanks, Elizabeth. And I'm glad we could get you in. That's another part of these Zoom things. I'd rather be in person.
Yeah, I couldn't get that yellow hand to do anything.
Well, maybe we need to get that hand changed from yellow to purple.
That's nice. And it's nice to
You
hear
should.
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
it's nice to hear you. I miss seeing you at church.
Are you going to church?
No, we're, as I mentioned earlier, and I think you know this, I've got my mother-in-law who lives with us. So we're trying to stick in the bubble as best we can. but
Well, so are we.
we're watching online. But thanks, Elizabeth. Say hi to Howard for me.
I will, thank you.
So nobody brought it up, and I was ready to go with it and excited to talk about a potential community pool. That potential community pool is still on the horizon to have a discussion amongst the community. I haven't, whether I'm in my position or not, I'll advocate for it out into the future. But it is something that I think would be a great thing for our community. We're still going down that path. Whether it's going to be, we don't know what it's going to be yet. I'd still advocate for it being a referendum question for people. I believe that. So that's that we have 4 different options of what we could do, ranging from little spray parks all the way up to a Taj Mahal of swimming pools. And I don't think we need the Taj Mahal, but I think that if we could have a year-round indoor-outdoor pool that could generate revenue, as opposed to a 4-month pool that loses revenue every year, I think that would be to our advantage. But we'll see what the taxpayers and our residents have to say about that. Kristen, go ahead.
My shovel is ready to dig the hole for that. I will not be on the board after April because we've got some family things coming up with my parents that I'm very excited about. But I am also enthusiastic about a pool. I'm hoping we have a 0 depth entry. I would like to take everyone to the Nina pool to see what it looks like to have a little beach and sand pit play area. I think that's going to be a fun project if it goes forward. And a community gathering spot that we would love as a community, I think.
So I don't know if I'll do my joke of the night. I got to go to the seniors meal that's served for them in Village Park or in Centennial Park this past summer. Let's see, it would have been 2 summers ago now already when we just started talking about the pool. And I thought that I was going to get bludgeoned by the seniors for even talking about a pool and the expense of a pool. And the overwhelming comment was, make sure it's warm water, not cold water. Just if it's warm water, we're in. We absolutely want that. And I'm one of those people too that doesn't like cold water. So I'm more than happy to accommodate warm water if we need to have that as part of it. So
as a future senior, yes, I hope to be doing my summer water pool exercises in whatever pool we hope to build. So I look forward to that day.
Early discussions, we have chatted a bit about multiple vessels, which would allow the temperatures to be different on both. I've learned that certain swimming competitions, they like it colder. Is it? I don't know. I'm way out of my league on that, but multiple vessels allows you to do more creative things with temperatures.
You are separate pools, or is that like separate sections within a pool?
They're segmented separately.
Segmented separately.
And you're right, Todd. The water temperature is for competition. If we were going to put a competitive pool in like that, yeah, they want it at a certain temperature for while they're competing. But that doesn't mean we have to keep it there all the time.
Yeah.
Regardless, that's the pool conversation. Let's see, any others that are big and on the horizon that people would want to know about. We continue to dedicate more and more money to our road construction and repair. I think it has been important. We've done that over the last several years. I think I saw Nyla was on. Yep, Nyla's on here with Public Works. That's been an item over several years that we wanted to catch up, and we want to make sure that we get to the roads and take care of them. And we've done it in a way that, people may say that we had a little increase in our taxes this year. If we had chosen not to hire 2 staff members, we wouldn't have had any increases in the village here this year, which with all the things that we've done, adding the library, the staff to the library, all the different things that are out there, we have been very good, in my opinion. Some people will disagree with our funds and how we do it. And I hope people realize that we're always acting in the best interest of the taxpayers. That's it. From a personal standpoint, I will say this, that I am running for re-election. Kristen, I want to thank you for your serving. And I know what's going on with you and your family, and my well wishes for that. But yeah, there's so many things about our community that I would always want to highlight, and we have the opportunity in Waunakee that most communities don't. And I feel very, very privileged, and that word privileged has come around in our community under white privilege. I want everybody to have that privilege to live in Wanakee, but understand that that might not be able to happen for some, unfortunately, due to circumstances out of our control. But that's a great topic of conversation for another time. But I just wanted to thank everybody for being on here tonight. We're at 7:40. So usually we're supposed to be done at 7:30, but I've never cut these off if people wanted to talk. So this is the final call for you to put up that wonderful, it sounds like it's a yellow hand. I thought it's a different color, but if it's yellow, put your yellow hand up. And
It's blue. It's blue, Chris.
blue. Yeah.
You might remember that blue yellow dress debacle back a few years ago. Some people saw one or the other. I have a feeling you saw the other.
It's blue right now, but Elizabeth said it was yellow. So I'm assuming that
It's
church
yellow.
the different colors. Paul, go ahead. You put your hand up again. Go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, I wanted to say thank you for implementing the weekly recycling. I don't know if the village was responsible for that or if Pelletier did it on their own. But our household, for one, our recycling far outweighs our landfill trash. And especially during this pandemic time, I mean, us among others are getting so many things delivered to our house in order to try to isolate that our recycling was overflowing many times during this past summer. So thank you.
I appreciate that comment more than you actually know. So former President Lobmeyer, when he was alive, we had an opportunity with our agreement with Pelletier that we could have had recycling weekly as well. And and I'm not saying his is wrong, but his view was that for those who didn't need it, why should we force them to pay for it? That extra, I don't know what it is, $1.20 a month or whatever we pay for additional recycling. He didn't feel that that was right to do to folks. And that was his position, and I respected that position. But I was advocating for recycling every week, right from the start, because I saw that with my family, with e-commerce and the deliveries that people are getting right now, and most of it's cardboard, that it was necessary. And so I'm glad we voted for that this time. And I think we voted it unanimously. Todd, is that correct? I think we voted.
Caitlin, do you happen to know?
To put that in, so.
I don't know off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was unanimous. So either way, I'm glad we could accommodate that for you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you. Linda. Ashmore, I think your hand's up again. Go ahead.
So when they talked about the reorganization, they brought up bidding out, putting things out for bid. And so I was just wondering, like, for big ticket items like engineering, consulting, banking, and attorney services, how often is that bid out, or is it ever bid out?
Okay, so there was a lot within that one. When you said at the reorganization meeting, so everybody knows what you're referring to, what meeting are you referring to?
There was a village board meeting where there was a presentation that the village had asked for a study to look at reorganizing because Kevin Even is retiring. I think that's what prompted it, from my understanding. And they wanted to look at, and you guys can correct me, because this is my perception, was that you started looking at if the roles in the village should be shifted around a little bit.
Yeah, so what we've been waiting for, we had a consultant that was hired, and Todd has been working with Caitlin to give the board options with what we could do. And they're making recommendations as far as what that staff level would look like. And I think we're still going through that process. I shouldn't say I think, we are still going through that process. I don't know, do you guys have anything to add to that, Todd and Caitlin? I mean,
I think Linda's specific question is, do we have some sort of policy that states when we go out for bid on our contracted services? And correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, but I do not believe we have an overarching policy in the village for when we go out for bid for all of our contracted services.
There isn't, although there have been services that the village board has asked us to consider with the thought that we ought to see what the market might offer. Banking is one. In fact, we're going out again this year because our policy requires where our deposits have to be local, and Old National Bank isn't here anymore. So we're going to be doing banking again. We've done
labor attorney.
Some attorney services, so a number of different ones. But what Linda heard, and which was presented from our consultants, was informing us that it can be a productive effort in the realm of municipal engineering to seek competitive bids, and that might provide us some effectiveness, or it might make the existing contractor, existing firm sharpen their pencil, or think about maybe other ways to deliver the service that can be more efficient but just as effective. So so that's what was up the other night.
And I guess that's what I was extending it to these other services, that if it makes them sharpen their pencil and say, maybe we can get a lower cost to the village, then maybe it'd be a good idea to look at a policy of, we're going to bid out some of these services every so many years.
I think that's a good point. I think there is good reason to do that. The one thing I will mention, sometimes you go out to bid because we've changed as a community, perhaps in size or the complexity of things that impact us. So sometimes it's a factor of the existing contract, the existing service being delivered isn't sufficient to meet the needs of the community as things change around us environmentally. So it's there's a number of reasons where that makes sense. I am a proponent of doing that when our staff can, when we can fit it in, it tends to be a pretty significant effort. And certainly at the desire of the village board, staff would be ready to pursue RFPs.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Linda. All right, so last thing, if everybody's okay with this, if you don't get off the call right now, I'm going to have Todd call you in, and you have to tell us one thing that you really like about living in Waunakee. So, Todd, I'm just going to go with who's at the top of the list and down from my side, and I want you to pull them in. Bob Harvey.
If they don't want to be pulled in, they should hang up now.
Getting off right now. Yep, that's what I was giving. I gave them that warning.
Okay, I'm going to go down the list, top to bottom. Here's Bob.
Bob, you have to hit your. There you go.
I'm sorry, I was kind of doing some tax work here.
That's called multitasking.
All I'm asking for.
Ooh, come on, that was
no.
good.
No.
So go ahead, Bob. Anything you'd like to say that what you like about Waunakee?
Oh, I love the community. We did, before we moved to Waunakee, we moved from the Milwaukee area, and we did a circle around Madison, and we were here for a weekend or a couple of weekends, and we asked the people where they'd want to live. And so we went to the various communities, went to the schools, because our son was in 6th grade at the time, and that was of utmost importance. And we were just super impressed with Waunakee. So we moved here, and I have not been disappointed.
Awesome. Well, great to hear that. Thank you for participating tonight, and always participate in these. Find a friend or 2 or 5 for all these listening sessions so they can listen too. So they can get the right answers and the truth. And if we don't have the answers you're seeing, we'll get back to people. So thank you for being here tonight, Bob.
Thank you for holding these.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob.
Next, Todd.
Jim, our friend Jim.
Fast.
They are falling off. They are falling off. Hi, Jim. Or is it Gene? Or both?
They're muted. Can you unmute them?
I hope we don't hear him snoring.
We put everyone to sleep. They're not actually on.
All right, I'm not gonna do that to them. I'm gonna take them back out. Linda's still here. Maybe Linda, do you have more to share?
It's only what's great. They can only talk about what's great about Waunakee.
Oh, yeah. Only good news.
I really like our neighborhood. We've been here for a long time, great neighbors, so.
Awesome. Great.
Thanks.
You for that.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks for joining us today.
And that looks like Sam. Sam, go ahead.
Let me bring him in. Okay. Sam has an older version of Zoom. Well, Sam, you're getting promoted all the way to panelist because I can't just allow you to talk. So there.
Very interesting. I better update my Zoom. I guess I just really like my neighbors. I have a good neighborhood here, and I've been fortunate to have their support over the last 17, 18 years. And I like that I can walk to go visit my cousins and my relatives, and I don't have to see them.
All right, cool.
They're great reasons to like Wanakee.
All great reading.
Sam.
So, thank you, Sam. So if the Albuquerques are there, if they want their chance, this is it right now.
Wow, Chris, you're really pushing this. Jim or Jean, are you there?
And if not, we are a wrap. Thank you, everybody who's still on, for being here tonight.
All
And
right.
Thank
Kristen,
you.
thank you again.
Thanks for inviting me to do this.
Absolutely. Appreciate you doing
See you
it.
guys later.
Bye, everyone.
Good night, everyone.